Okay, cool. Sure. I mean, yeah. Yeah, sounds good. Hi, my name is Jacob Haimes, and I am from Boulder, Colorado, which is right at the foothills of the Rocky Mountains. I grew up here in Boulder, and when I was applying for colleges, I only applied to one because I knew I wanted to go to CU Boulder. So I went there for undergrad in mechanical engineering, and then I did my master's in computational modeling, also through the mechanical engineering department, but focus on optimization, and I had a minor in computer science as well. Um, yeah, that's about it for education stuff. Yeah, so about half a year or so after starting my first job out of college, um, I started thinking basically like this is okay. It was healthcare information systems, and I liked that I was doing positive impact, but I felt like I could be using my technical skills more, and that I could be potentially doing more, I guess, as well. And so I did a retrospective or like a reflection. That's what I was looking for. Reflection on what I wanted to do, and what mattered to me. And during that process, I discovered I really only care about, well, not only care, but in terms of what I wanted to do for work, the things I wanted to do were something related to um, the betterment of the world for everyone. Um, and so the areas were climate change and AI safety that I felt were fit for my area of expertise, which is optimization and modeling. And so I looked more into those and felt that at this point we're in early 2023, and I felt that AI was taking off quickly, um, but was still nascent. And if I started working on these things now, I could have a potentially like very outsized impact, as defining the paradigms that exist within a field as it's being created is probably going to have pretty long term effects. So this would have been in around November of 2023 when I first heard about a part, and I was just attending some talks at an EAGX virtual, and Esben, who's one of the co-founders of Apart, was giving a talk on. Um, I think it was actually called "Let's Get Into AI Safety," which at that point was already the name of my podcast. Um, so I attended that, and he signposted that a hackathon was happening in the next week. It was on evaluations, and I basically thought like this seems like an opportunity that I'm interested in. Um, this is in the area that I'm more interested in, especially at that point. And I mean, we both chose basically the same name, so that's got to mean something. And that's how I first learned about Apart. Yeah, so after the hackathon happened, and I actually recorded the episode, or I recorded the conversations that our group had, and two of them are up on the Into AI Safety podcast, and I plan on eventually releasing the others, but it's just been a lot of work to get things up and keep maintaining that as well. So they will come out eventually, but we were invited to join the Apart Fellowship, and two of the four of us decided to join. The other two wanted to focus on some other things, which is totally valid. Um, and basically, we then took our hackathon idea, which was already, I would say, pretty well defined in terms of what we wanted to do, and applied for at least one, maybe two grants, and started turning it into more of like a real research proposal, and understanding how we could make it into a conference paper, at that was actually accepted. And so this is me and Kenny Wenner, and it was just the two of us. And so sometime within December, we got an invite to the Apart Fellowship, and two of us joined. Me and or Kenny and I joined, and Alice and Lucy wanted to pursue some other things. So we then basically took this idea that we had, I would say, it was pretty well developed at that point in time in terms of what we wanted to do, but it was not yet a research proposal, in the sense that there's a lot of detail that you have to sort of draw out of a hackathon project, before you can actually get it to a point where, like, okay, if we executed this plan, it would be a decent conference paper, for example. So that sort of was the process there, and that took through until May, when we submitted to the NeurIPS datasets and benchmarks track. So at that point, we also decided to submit to some workshops. And again, this was earlier in the process. So the journey will look a little bit different now, for people joining Apart. And I think we've really improved on that. I think the process was great. It definitely gave me really good experience, in terms of like submitting a paper and doing rebuttals, and going to conferences. Even I went to a workshop in Thailand, for the ACL 2024 in Thailand with the paper, and someone else also went to an ICML workshop on data-centric machine learning. So we got it into those, and we then got rebuttals. There's a very long window for getting information back from reviewers, and so we responded to them, did some more, and we ended up not getting in to the datasets and benchmarks track. And so then we took the advice that we got, and we reworked the paper a little bit, added some things, and submitted again, to a different conference. And so I guess that's one thing to take note of, is like the process is technically still ongoing, and I think that just like is the way it is with research, because the paper is still improving as well, which is great. The process that is what the process would look like now for a new fellow, is significantly different. Yeah, so this is something that we're really excited about. We spent a long time thinking about the best way to take a project from hackathon to end of hackathon. You've just done some great research in a very short amount of time, and now you have something, but it isn't necessarily in a state that is the best for sharing. And we think the best way to increase impact there, both for like participants and just overall, is to start with a quick push to sort of polish that up, add maybe a couple extra things, like an uncertainty analysis or some additional like margin of error or additional models that you're running this test on or something like that. And then make it look pretty and share that. Because, and this is something that I guess I've been thinking about and sort of building my world view on like what I should be doing around, as well as like the reason we do research is to impact and help other people doing research or using our research in the future. Which means if we're not spending a lot of time uh, helping make that research accessible, so sharing it on multiple platforms, but also just using accessible language and making figures that tell a story and tell a story that you want them to tell, as opposed to just being data on like a plot, is really important. And so this stage of the studio is really focused on that as well. And during that process, you'll like work with some of the people at Apart to hone your idea, focus on what the things are that are like matter most. So the next step for one project is not the same as it is for another project, and figuring out what that is and what will be most effective, and also how to best share that information is a lot of what this, I guess, like approximately 2 weeks is, with the end being publishing a blog post that says, hey, look, here is this work that I've done in a hackathon, and then polish it up afterwards. I think it's important to look at, and what's nice about that is it not only shares your work so it gets out there, but it's also something for people to point to when applying for things, because oftentimes having a concrete example of work that you've done is really useful. And so making that and making sure that that is like well produced essentially is going to be, I think, valuable for people in the long run. And then after that blog post section, you can either end the studio if that's sort of what you wanted to get out of it, or if you have the capacity and dedication and all that stuff, you can start working towards a research proposal. And that research proposal doesn't necessarily have to be part of the hackathon work. So it doesn't have to be a continuation of that. It can be something different. But it also could be a continuation of your hackathon work. And so we're thinking that that allows for, if there was some sort of finding within your investigation that you were doing during the blog post stage that you're like, oh, maybe this isn't necessarily as scalable, that doesn't necessarily end your like time in the studio just because the work doesn't seem as promising in the long run. So the next about 6 weeks is writing a real like formal research proposal and applying to grants with that research proposal near the end of that phase. And that's sort of the overarching I guess Apart Lab studio process. Okay. Yeah, so the end paper was called, or is called, Benchmark Inflation, Revealing LLM Performance Gaps Using Retro Holdouts. And essentially in this, the question we're asking is, we know that evaluation gaming in the form of data leakage, so the test data getting into the training data of LLMs, benchmarks having their questions and corresponding answers be put directly into the training sets of LLMs. We know that's happening at this point because there's tons of literature on this. But what we don't, or what we didn't really know was what is the concrete impact. So um, it was plausible to say, okay, sure, there's data from this test set in the training data, but like that's a very small portion of the training data relatively, and so maybe it doesn't actually have an impact on performance. Um, what we found doing this benchmark inflation is that that's not the case. Instead, it does have a meaningful impact, and the way that we found that is by using this concept of holdout data sets. So when you're training an LLM, or when you're training anything really in like optimization or machine learning in general, standard practice is to take the data set that you're going to train on and take a random subsampling of that, hold it out, and make sure that neither the developers nor the model see it. So you don't put it in the training data, you don't validate against it, you don't use it for like meta optimization of your parameters. It's completely held out. And then at the end of the process, when you say, okay, I'm done now, you evaluate your final model on that holdout set. Now, the idea here was if we had a holdout set for existing benchmarks that was truly private and had not been seen, then we could compare if the publicity of benchmarks is impacting model performance on them. And so the issue is we don't have that for basically any benchmarks because while technically feasible, it is very inconvenient and costly to do for a benchmark or dataset creator. Okay, this is actually a relatively new paper, I believe, that has, I think will have pretty big implications, but basically its findings say that like quantization, so being able to make these big models smaller without a lot of loss is coming to an end, and that would imply that scaling is going to get a lot harder and more costly, and so that may indicate an end or at least a plateau or stall in this idea of just like pour more compute into the pre-training of models. And I guess I'm quite excited about that. At this point, a lot of the AI safety or just even AI and ML research is extremely competitive. And so it's like, first off, if you aren't in the Bay Area, DC, or London already, and you're not willing to move there, then like, good luck. Um, in addition, it just like is really competitive. So even if you are willing to move there or you are already there, it may be really difficult to find and secure like actual sustainable opportunities. Um, and even if you're like volunteering your time, that can be the case. The solution that I found and went to at this stage, like for me, was okay. There, there aren't any opportunities that are just going to fall into my lap. If I want to do this, I need to make my own opportunities. I think what's unique about Apart is that it's very good at helping you make your own opportunities. And what I mean by that is like we don't tell you what to look into. So you're still doing it. You're the one that is pushing forward the research. You're the one that is making progress on like gaining understanding of the research process, both in general and in the machine learning field, and also just like working with LLMs. So in that sense, I think it does fit into like you're making your own opportunities. But if there's another way for you to make an opportunity, like I would say you should do that as well, or also, or I guess you could do it instead. I mean, I like Apart a lot. I think it worked out very well for me, and I think we've had a really good impact on the people we've worked with. So I would recommend Apart for sure. But like the important takeaway is you're not going to get a handout. And so if you want to do something, make it work. And that's why I started the podcast. That's why I started like the media network, Kairos FM, that I have. That's why I did the Apart hackathon. I think Apart is one like very valuable tool in that process. Yeah, well, things have gotten a little bit more busy recently because I am working with Apart and Kairos FM, which I'm hosting two podcasts, and then I also do some work with the Odyssean Institute on some more governance, democratic process research, but bringing that to AI and AI governance. So I am quite busy, but in basically all my free time, I guess, well, all my non-work time other than house stuff or taking care of my cat, whose name is Saphira, and I'm just looking at her right now. She's in her little bed next to my desk. I love role-playing games. So sorry, the person interviewing me just did a very weird hand gesture at me, so I got a little bit distracted. I know what he was doing. It was like he was saying petting a cat, but it was like very. Oh, you're asking for me to show her? She's asleep, but I can. Saphira, come here. Come here. This is Saphira. Hi. Say hi, Saphira. She says, "How dare you wake me up?" Look at that face. Oh, you're so cute. Mwah. Okay. Good girl. Uh, nice. Yes, so I love, Saphira is a reference to Aragon, which is a fantasy book about a dragon. Um, the dragon's name is Saphira. She's our little dragon. I love role playing games, so things like Dungeons and Dragons, but also other ones like Blades in the Dark, Grimwild, anything really. I do a lot of DMing as well, so some people might consider that to be less, or like more work after I'm done with work, but I think it's just so fun, and happy to discuss about all things role playing games with anyone as well.